Hello and welcome to the Doug Geiser Show, Year 2, brought to you by the Ashland University Journalism and Digital Media Department. I'm Miles Irvin, and I am joined by Doug Geiser, the head coach of the Ashland University football team. Coach, thanks for joining me.
I appreciate you having me today. Thank you.
Now, this weekend, the team traveled up north to take on the Hillsdale Chargers and came away with the team's first win of the season. What are some of your takeaways from the game?
First and foremost, I'm ecstatic for the team and the coaches, and it adds confirmation for all the time and the effort they've been putting in. And as hard as we work and as much hours they put in, you need that confirmation that you're doing the right things. And that's always great, in that respect. The second thing is we get a chance to hold on to the traveling trophy. And being a part of only one of 22 games in the country that plays for a trophy, we're honored to be in that situation. And so we get to hang on to one more year, and it's up there on the second floor of the Troop Center. So we're pretty happy about that.
Well, looking at the offensive side of things, the run game finally started to excel. So what went into those adjustments?
It's just a matter of chopping wood, practicing every day, and continue to work the fundamentals, working your combos, working your double teams, really working on that timing and then building that trust and that camaraderie up front. The guys that we have playing right now have only been working together as a unit for about 5 weeks, and that includes training camp. And there's no substitute for time and reps and hard work in that respect. So we're finally starting to see the fruits of that labor and hopefully continue to see increasing success as we go forward.
Well, speaking of that, yet again, we continue to see the next man up mindset with wideout Drew Johnson becoming heavily involved in the offensive scheme. What has led to his improvements in the last year?
It is no secret, hard work. Hard work. Drew punches the clock every single day, shows up with a smile on his face, and has the attitude, the ultimate team attitude of what do you need me to do today? Is it special teams? Is it where he cut his teeth initially? Is it an offense? You need me to take an increased role? Whatever needs to be done, he shows up, smile on his face, gives you 100%. And I know it sounds cliche, but I feel great for Drew. He finally gets that opportunity, and he's making the most of it.
Now, looking back at the first 2 games of the season against Ferris State and IUP, do you think those 2 non-conference foes help you to prepare for Hillsdale?
Playing up and playing challenging opponents in the non-conference is not fun, but it definitely gives you a real sense of where you are at that point in the season. You'll have a good sense of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and you get exposed. And just a matter at that point of correcting those mistakes, building on that. So did it help us prepare for Hillsdale? Yes, it did. You don't like taking the loss in both those games, but we used it as a learning experience, and that it wasn't fatal, and we move on and play the next week, and we were fortunate enough to get that W against Hillsdale.
So moving on to the defensive side of the ball, we still haven't talked about it that much. Who stood out this past week on that side of the ball?
The defensive player of the game for us was Jack Talkington, and continues to have tremendous plays, make plays in key situations. And so it was nice to see him kind of get the recognition. We only recognize players of the game when we have wins. And so this was the first opportunity we had a chance to recognize players of the game on all sides of the ball. And in that respect, if I can interject right here, the game ball went to Drew Johnson. The offensive player of the game was Alana Kamara. Special teams player of the game was A.J. Rhodes. And then we also recognized special teams, scout team players of the game. That's my fault there. The scout team player on the special teams was Jericho Etok. On defense was Zay Furman, defensive end. And on offense, it was the scout offensive line. So you like to throw those guys some sugar. They're doing a great job prepping us during the week, and they had a big hand in us getting the W on Saturday.
Now, lastly, moving forward, how do you hope the team starts to build off of this victory?
Well, as I told the team, whether it's a win, whether it's a loss on Sunday, after we watch the tape, after we make the corrections on the field, get treatment and lift, you turn the page. It's on to the next chapter, and the next chapter happens to be the defending GMAC champions, the Tiffin Dragons. And so if that doesn't get your attention, nothing will. So we're already on to Tiffin, spend the whole day today doing our game plan and research on them, and we'll start the practice tomorrow.
It was great to sit down with you, Coach. We will go more in depth on the team's upcoming game against Tiffin in today's episode. Thanks so much for sitting down with me.
It's been a pleasure.
It is now time for us to take a quick break and join you back here shortly. Stay tuned. You're watching the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show. I am currently joined by recent standout wide receiver Drew Johnson. Drew, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
To hop straight into things, through the opening few weeks of action, how has the team been on the chemistry side of things in the locker room?
Yeah, I think if you ask anybody, we're a brotherhood, right? And that goes from hard summer workouts and obviously camp, always a grind, and even the different trials that we've had the last couple of weeks. It's hard to break apart a team, even when they're going through struggles. When there's such a connection, such a brotherhood, a lot of older guys trying to mentor and get to know better younger guys and just keeping that team morale up. So chemistry is always going to be there. Chemistry is always going to be there.
Now, obviously, a big year for you being placed in the main rotation. What had you been working on in the offseason to get to this point?
Nothing different in terms of my game. Obviously, you always work to get faster, bigger, stronger, better on your routes, downfield releases, different things like that for a wide receiver. But also just being, like I said, physically, but mentally, vocally ready to just hop in and wherever I'm needed, whether that's special teams or obviously getting thrown into the main rotation for being a wideout. Just working on being the type of player, the type of leader that the coaches need out on the field.
Now, through the first 2 weeks, your guys as a team, your backs were against the wall a little bit. How did you rally to find the win against Hillsdale this past week?
Yeah, I think it all just comes down to getting back to the basics. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing, like Coach always says, turning the page, but not freaking out, and instead just getting back to watching more film. I know us as wide receivers, we watched a lot of film together for the Hillsdale game, and then also just small things, practicing hard, making sure our bodies are right. Kind of back to that chemistry point where it's just not getting freaked out, but instead just taking what we've been given and saying, okay, how do we progress? How do we move on from here?
Now, you yourself, you've been exploding for some big chunk plays recently. How do you keep yourself ready to go for those big moments?
Yeah, I mean, this is my 4th year here, and I like to think that all the mental reps, all those years of preparation have been preparation for this now, and to be able to use all those different things that I've learned from older guys. I mean, even older guys guys who have had great game experience, and we even still have, being able to take those things and just incorporate them and be able to step out on the field with confidence and not have to think as much or be worried about doing this wrong, doing that wrong. Instead, just being able to go out and trust that the preparation that we've done behind the scenes for the last couple of years will pay off in that moment.
Now, let's talk off the field for a little bit. You've been very vocal about your faith on campus. How has that been influential in your life as a student athlete?
Definitely. The Lord is my life, right? He is life, obviously. Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all else will be added unto you." And I was somebody who I always dealt with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, smaller things like that, and the Lord takes those away. Like the Lord always provides. And so, in terms of contentness with my role, obviously there are a lot of guys who, if they don't see action their first year on the field, they're going to just split, especially with the transfer portal and all these different things. I've been so happy with the people in the place that the Lord has put me in right here in Ashland, and so contentness and keeping down any pride that I might have been garnering over years, and keeping humility, because ultimately we can't boast in anything else but the cross. So there is no other reason to play the game that I play, to live the life that I live other than Christ. So.
Well, lastly, what are the team's expectations moving forward now after this first win?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to keep winning, right? Well, we don't just play the game for week 3 wins. We play for beyond everything. But like Coach Geiser said, like what everybody will say when you ask them, like we are focused on Hillsdale last week, and then boom, we're moving into this week. We're moving into Tiffin and getting into that film and just trying to piece together win after win. And it starts this week with Tiffin. So.
Well, Drew, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
When we return back from this next commercial break, we will be joined by Coach Evan Burberry. Stay tuned right here for the Doug Geiser Show on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show. I am currently joined by Coach Evan Burberry, the assistant coach, director of football operations, wide receivers coach, and head junior varsity coach. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
To hop straight into things, through the opening 3 weeks of play, how have you addressed the play of your wide receivers thus far?
I think in the first 3 weeks we've been growing. It's a young group with some experience, but maybe not playing experience, and we have some redshirt freshmen, true freshmen in there that had opportunity to play, and we've seen some success and also some growing up to do. But I think in the first 3 weeks we're on the right track.
As you look at the team, there have been a variety of shakeups in that starting lineup. How have you and the coaching staff helped ensure each guy has the next man up mentality?
I think it's just with how we practice, put them in the right situations, personnel, formation, certain plays maybe where they're going to succeed. And I think guys from receivers, tight ends, fullbacks, offense line, running backs have made some great strides in the first 3 weeks.
When looking at your role as director of football operations, for those who may not be aware, what does that role look like on a daily basis?
It's basically the guy behind the scenes that work with the head coach. Coach Geiser and I work extremely well together. What's best for our players. We try to take, when we go on the road, it's going to be like a home game. So what time we eat, chapel, pregame meal, all that's, bells and whistles on the road, same thing we do at home. So work with great people. The last trip at Hillsdale was phenomenal. Those people at Hillsdale College were great for us. They were a great host, and they made us feel like at home.
You have also helped lead the junior varsity team. So far throughout the start of the season, how have some of the young guys performed, and is anyone standing out to you?
It was a great win yesterday against Mount Union, 24 to 20. I don't think we've beat Mount Union since I've been here, and it was a great first victory for the JV Eagles. Calling certain guys out, as a whole team, it was really well. I would say probably Chris Brown as a receiver played really well. Drew Novak and Manaki Watanabe, our kicker, hit a 46-yarder to ice the game, and it was phenomenal. So those kids had great energy, great stride, and it was a big win for us.
Now, how do you guys plan on moving forward throughout that season?
Just keep growing. Just like we tell the varsity guys, just keep moving forward. They've been doing a great job, I think, for all of us, reading a scout card, getting coached by other, coaches for scout cards, special teams, offense, defense, and then going out on Sunday afternoons and playing against somebody else, and you just get let it loose and go play and have fun and, play together as Eagles.
Now, looking back at the varsity side of things, how do you feel the team looked against the Chargers?
Looking back to last week, I thought we hit some big explosive plays, run and pass, but no one likes turnovers, so we got to clean it up as an offense and just keep stacking and finish drives when we need to. Looking at it back as a receiver room, we had a couple third downs to convert that we didn't. Get that cleaned up because this is going to be a big one against Tiffin this week.
Now, what must the team do to find more success and build off that win, try to build a winning streak?
I just think how we practice. I think the last 2 weeks, Ferris week and Hillsdale was a great week of practice. Just keep going with that, get our guys trusting each other, working together, and keep moving forward.
Lastly, who should the fans out there be looking at in the wide receiver room to have a big performance this coming weekend against Tiffin?
We're kind of a week-by-week unit. We like to play a lot of different guys. I think kind of building off really Drew Johnson's success. I mean, he made 4 huge big-time plays in that game, catches to make. One was for a touchdown, one was for the game-winning field goal against Hillsdale. But I think we have a great nucleus, a great room of guys that are ready to open it up and really show out what they can do for the fans out there in Jack Miller Stadium.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
When we return back from this next commercial break, we will wrap up today's show with Coach Geiser. Stay tuned right here for the Doug Geiser Show on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show, right here on AUTV. Coach, it's time for the final segment of today's show. Before we dive into the upcoming season schedule, we have to talk about this week's matchup against Tiffin. How important would it be for you guys to go 2-0 in conference play?
That would be huge. You know, looking at the history of the league, the winner of the league has usually been undefeated. At the most has one defeat. So really key for us to kind of start stacking wins at this point, and be a big challenge because Tiffin's the defending GMAC champions.
For the fans out there, who should they be on the lookout for to stand out from the game's opening snap from both sides?
As you look at them offensively, they kind of have a triplets mentality. They have a new quarterback this year, Alex Johnson, and they picked up right where Kason Martin left last year. He's very solid, and he's really key for them as far as being the straw that stirs the drink. They have one of the better running backs in the league in Ronald Blackman, very fast, electric in the open field. You got one of the best receivers, Jalen Thomas. You know, he's a returning starter as well. So that three-headed monster makes them go on offense. Defensively, everything on defense kind of revolves around their two inside linebackers, Kenneth Bird and Jalen Coles. Then they have one of the better pass rushers in the league as well, at Chris Walton. So we got a challenge on both sides of the ball.
All right, Coach, let's take a look at some other games down the road before we wrap up the show. When looking at the start of the season, there are obviously some tough teams in the mix, but now that conference play is here, anything can happen.
Absolutely. So for us, you know, we continue with our one game at a time mantra. You know, whatever's happened previous, that book is closed. I don't know what's happening after this week. So right now, Tiffin's got our full focus.
Now, with GMAC play also finally occurring, we can take our first look at the conference standings. Coach, are there any teams that are standing out to you as of right now?
Well, you look at the top of the list right now. You know, Findlay is undefeated overall, and that's a credit to them. And I would think they'll probably be starting to get some recognition in the top 25 poll, the AFCA. I know I voted them in, so they've had a great start to the season. And you look at some of the other teams. Thomas More, big win against Ohio Dominican this past week. So you know, there's a lot of good teams up there on the top half of that schedule.
Now, last thing for you, Coach. Tiffin and you guys have battled for the top spot in the GMAC for a few years now. How has that been transformed into a conference rivalry?
Well, if you go back a handful of years, really Gary Goff got that whole ball rolling, and Gary's now at McNeese State. You know, he moved to Valdosta and then McNeese, and obviously Chris Reisert, you know, picked up right when Gary left, and you know, they got probably the biggest thing for them right now. Those kids there expect to win. They've had a lot of success and they expect to win, and that mental aspect of it is really, really, really powerful.
Well, Coach, thank you for joining me here today.
I appreciate you having me, Miles. Thank you.
As a reminder, be sure to tune into 88.9 WRDL for full live game coverage of Ashland University versus the Tiffin University Dragons on Saturday, September 28th, with kickoff set for 1 p.m. And if you want to hear more from Coach Geiser, tune into the Early Birds Word Tuesday mornings at 7:30 a.m. for exclusive coverage of AU football. You can also catch the game on tape delay on Rock Entertainment Sports Network, brought to you by the Ashland University Journalism and Digital Media Department. I'm Miles Irvin, saying thank you so much for tuning into the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV.